So you're ready to move on to something a little bit more intermediate. You've gone through the beginner reptiles, or maybe you've just got your heart on something a little bit bigger, a little bit more unique, a little bit maybe more controversial. And today we're going to talk about the top 5 controversial intermediate reptiles, the ones that you're not going to see on anybody else's list. I'm Adam, you're watching Wicked's Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. Number 5, Sudan plated lizard. These are medium-bodied lizards from Eastern Africa, so they're going to come from places like Sudan, obviously. These are really cool lizards, but there's a reason that they're not an amateur or beginner lizard, and that's just simply because they need quite a bit of heat, they need a lot of humidity, or can need a lot of humidity. They don't get that big, and if we're going to be talking about just Sudan plated lizards and exclude the giants and the other species, we're going to talk 18 to 24 inches, so not super big. They're kind of similar in size to a bearded dragon, for example. That's a really great way to compare them. They do have this weird armored platiness to them, which I think is very cool, and I think that it's a little bit more unique. I could easily put a bearded dragon on this list, but I think Sudan plated lizards offer something a little bit more unique, although not super handleable, which is another reason they would be an intermediate and not a beginner lizard. And the reason that I put them on the controversial list, most people would say they could be maybe a beginner lizard. I just don't think they are, because their basking spot needs to be kind of high, up to 110 degrees, some would say, which isn't outlandish or unreasonable, but unlike some other lizards who need a high basking spot like that, you want their humidity level to be around 50%. Some would even say higher, right? So, and you also need a gradient not only for temperature, but a gradient for humidity. You'll need a very deep substrate in order to facilitate this. And because you need a deep substrate, literally it's just so difficult to keep the substrate in the cage. I've got about 4.5 inches worth of a barrier here, and the substrate is about 3.5 to 4 inches deep depending on where it is. And I would actually like to have it a little bit deeper, so we're going to work on that. Stay tuned, hit subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to see something new being built or a custom-made thing. Because they do need around 4 to 6 inches of substrate, and you'll need a little bit more humidity in deeper parts of the substrate, because they're going to want to burrow. So to simulate that, what I've done is I put a log, I put substrate all around it so it kind of simulates a burrow, and I put some sphagnum moss in there. And then on the other side, we've got a basking lamp, and it's going to be a little bit drier there. I only missed on the one side of the enclosure. Other than that, they're kind of simple. I mean, they're going to be not total insectivores, but mostly insects, along with flowers and some vegetables as well, and, you know, calcium D3, that sort of thing. And they do need UVB. They're not a desert species, but they are a basking diurnal species, so they do need UVB. Something to consider, not super difficult to do, but make sure you're changing that bulb, because a lot of people, not a lot, but some people might get lazy, might not change it, and then all of a sudden your animal is sick. You don't want to do that. Make sure you're changing the UVB, give them the right basking temperature, give them that gradient of not only temperature, but humidity. See what I mean? That's why they're on the list. Number 4, Boas, BCIs and BCCs, and what we've got here is a BCI in the example of why they are intermediate and not beginner or advanced, because I think Boas could be all three. It depends. If you never socialize them and they are never touched, they're intermediate species, because an animal that gets 6 to 8 feet is definitely going to be an intermediate reptile if it is striking at you, wants to eat you, because it's scared and never socialized. But that is either your fault or whoever had it before you's fault. And I'm kind of in the middle of that. If it is an animal that was socialized from a baby, it'll be very placid. Boas are generally very easily handled and tameable and fantastic because they're so strong, it almost feels like they're giving you a hug. But an intermediate version of a BCI or a BCC, BCI, we've got Franny here, this is what it is, because she wasn't socialized when she was little. She was kind of given to me when she was about a year old. I've been working with her for a little while now, and well, let's give this a try. This is a big snake. They get, like I said, 8 to 10 feet. Now this is a BCI. She's only going to get to about 8 feet probably. She's probably 6 feet now, and I would say 3 years old. They are semi-arboreal, so you want to give them a place to climb. which I should have taken out before we did this video. And they do like the water as well. Now they're lightning fast, so you got to be careful, and that's why my eyes are on the sharp end of this snake. Although they are probably easy, bigger constrictor to take care of, they are one you still got to watch, because at the end of the day, taking a bite from a 5 or 6 foot, I think she is now, animal is not going to be fun. You cannot go up there. Those are leopard geckos. You will eat them. I'm out of breath. As far as enclosure size, this is pretty much as big as this animal is going to get for this enclosure. This enclosure is only 16 inches tall. They're semi-arboreal, so you want to give them more space than that. And it is 4 feet wide and 2 feet deep. So eventually what I would like to do is have an enclosure that is quite a bit larger than this for Franny. All right, we'll let you crawl in there now. I've tried to do this segment 4 times. She's probably pretty stressed out. So in general, you're probably going to want a 6 or 8 foot long by 3 feet deep by 3 foot high enclosure, which eventually Franny's going to need. I've literally tried to do this 4 times. Like, I'm sweating so much. But anyway, that's BCIs or BCCs. You can make them beginners, but they might be intermediates also. And this is a controversial list, and we'll just move on to number 3 on the list is something that isn't a reptile. I'm cheating here. It's the only amphibian on the list. But you guys asked to talk about more amphibians, and axolotls are perfect for this list. They stay small. We're talking between 9 and 12 inches on average, and they can live their whole life in a 10 or a 20-gallon aquarium. But it's just that. It's an aquarium. They're completely aquatic. They do not need land. And you think, oh, that's easier, right? You just, make sure the water is clean and you're good. Well, no, you've got to be like a freaking chemist to figure out the pH levels, ammonia levels, nitrates, all these other words that I don't know what they mean. And I'll be honest, my girlfriend takes care of these guys. I've got nothing to do with them. And I'll bet you she spends more time cleaning these 3 aquariums, the one upstairs and then the tub over here with our little runt of an axolotl, than I spend in the entire reptile room for the week. Water changes, chemistry, you gotta make sure everything's the way it's supposed to be, and it's just a lot of work. And that's why I think that they are an intermediate and definitely not a beginner species of reptile or amphibian, herp, I guess I should say. So axolotls, if you want something that's a little bit more advanced, it takes more time, but is really fun to watch because, they are really cool, and the way that they eat is really cool as well. It's gonna consume a lot of your day. But, they're pretty cute, right? Now, number 2 is something that I don't have in my collection, but is a dream of mine. Aki Monitors. Aki Monitors are amazing. Yellows or reds, top ends, there's a whole bunch of different ones. Top enders is what I was trying to say. Really great monitors if you want something that is small. And I know lots of people who have them, but most of them live in places where they're not as expensive as they are here. And that's one of the reasons they might be an intermediate type of reptile. Not only the fact that they need a very high basking spot, we're talking 120 to 130, which might be difficult to facilitate, they also need a kind of large enclosure. Not super big, 4 by 2 by 2 is kind of like the minimum, although a lot of people will give them larger enclosures, which I would definitely agree with. These are just really cool, and although they can be tamed down, they're not super tamed, I guess is the right word to use. They're not super easy to tame down, but they're really interesting. Their diets are interesting, and mostly their behavior is interesting. Now, I don't have a total care guide. Holy cow, that boa wore me out. I don't have a total care guide about Aki Monitors. They do look awesome. Thank you very much for Professor Herp for letting me use this footage, and if you want to see his video, boom, it's right up here telling you all about Aki Monitors. Man, these guys are cool. And number 1, also a dream reptile of mine, and just something I do not have enough room for, and this is why they are on the controversial intermediate list. Tortoises. Medium and small tortoises. Now, I'm not going to talk about sulcatas, for example, or galops. Those are intermediate. Those are advanced species. But something like a Herman's tortoise, or a cherryhead tortoise, or a redfoot tortoise, or a Greek tortoise, or, you get the point, right? Leopard tortoises even, I would say, which is kind of a medium-sized tortoise, because they need a lot of space. So if you live in a place like I do, where you can't have your animals outside all year long because it snows or gets cold or just, isn't Florida, basically, or Southern California or Texas, these guys are going to need to be inside, and you're going to need a big enclosure. For example, say a leopard tortoise. The very smallest that I've ever found recommended is something like 3 by 6 foot, and probably even bigger than that. That's pretty big. That's a big space. And then if you do have a yard, you're going to need to have an enclosed type of, big area with the fence dug in, because a lot of tortoises like to dig So it takes a little bit more work and a little bit more money to set them up. But the reason that they're not an advanced species is because if you have the room, you can set them up, you can facilitate the UVB, which all tortoises need, the basking spots, the humidity level depending, right? Because if you're a cherry head or a redfoot, for example, you're going to need higher humidity. If you're, say, a leopard tortoise, you're going to need less humidity. So if you can facilitate all of that, which is the hard part, really the diet's pretty simple. Almost all tortoises are completely vegetarian, or they're herbivores is the right word to use, although cherry heads and redfoots will eat a little bit of protein, which is kind of makes them a little bit more interesting to me. So it's pretty simple to do, as long as you've got, say, a fridge and a supermarket that can sell you these things, so you can keep the diet of these guys proper. That's pretty simple. And in terms of the danger factor, like, you just watch me try to wrangle that boa. I was afraid to get bit the whole time because she's a little bit sketchy. Tortoises, even if they are sketchy, they're slow moving, and you don't really have to worry about them hurting you as much as, say, I don't know, a big constrictor snake or something like that. Although all those animals can be tamed down and fantastic pets, tortoises just kind of have this, I don't know, this calmness about them. And that's what I really love about them. I hope one day, well, definitely one day, once I have a bigger space inside for the winter months, I will have myself a tortoise. They're fantastic, a bunch of great options. Thank you very much for DBCB Exotics and Professor Herp for letting me use the footage of theirs. I am so jealous of you guys. One day, I will get myself a small or medium tortoise. And there you go, the top 5 controversial intermediate reptiles. What do you think? Did I miss something? Was something on the list that shouldn't have been on the list? Let me know. I did this video because you guys asked for it in the comment section below. I take every video idea out of there, so put your idea down there. It could be next week's video. As always, hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button if you liked the video. I'd really appreciate it. And we do videos Monday and Thursday, which means I'll see you on Thursday.